Welcome to the Bernie's Bootlegs podcast, where we explore the stories of successful musicians and share their perspectives on how to be a professional artist in a digital age. I'm your host, Kenny McCabe. Today I'm bringing you my conversation with saxophonist Dave Pollack. You may have seen Dave on his YouTube channel where he uploads funny and interesting music-related content in addition to his own recordings. Dave is a professional educator in the New Jersey area, but is an amazing saxophonist in his own right, and I really enjoyed speaking with him. We discuss his time at William Paterson University, why he chose the path of education, how he advises his students on whether to pursue a music degree, why his motto is "Make Jazz Fun Again," and much more. You can find Dave on Instagram at Dave Pollack Music, and also on his website at davepollack.com. And so without further ado, I bring you my conversation with Dave Pollack. All right, guys, I'm here with Dave Pollack. Dave, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hey, Mr. Bootlegs, no problem at all. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, pleasure's all mine. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful, man, and I'm really excited for this. And thank you. I want to just start off by saying thank you for everything you do with these podcasts now, but with the channel in general. And I can't wait to see the 7 times Bernie goes crazy on the podcast. Bernie goes beast mode on the podcast.
Yeah, man, I think that'd be hilarious. I don't know if I've gone beast mode so far, but I'm sure it's in store.
It's coming.
Definitely. And so I guess we can just, where I want to start is if you go to the Dave Pollack YouTube channel right now, on the top it says "Make Jazz Fun Again."
It does.
Tell us what that means and why that's your motto.
Sure, man. So, I mean, I guess a lot of people can put together the way it looks and kind of the phrasing there. And it's not a political thing at all. It was just more of a response kind of thing at a timing a few years ago where, I was playing these gigs and I was just looking at the general attitude of a lot of musicians, not a lot, but a good amount of musicians I've seen. And the attitude that I was seeing was one of, I'm only here for the paycheck. I'm here to almost vibe other people. And one that really got to me was I was playing a gig and somebody was soloing, right? And I was like getting all into it. And I'm like, yeah, man. And, someone that you've already had on the podcast, Benny Benack, man, the ridiculous trumpet player, he's always like that. I love watching him, right? And I'm sure a lot of other people love watching him react. And I was at this gig, right? And I'm reacting, I'm doing the whole thing. And everybody else in the gig was either looking at the soloist like almost with the look of like, oh, this person's not that good, or, oh, I heard that lick before, or they weren't even paying attention. I was just like, man, the audience is watching us, where they're not just listening to us. They're watching us in a performance, and we're performing. We're not just recording in a studio where nobody can see us. And that was just like kind of the tipping point for me. And I was like, man, you know what? And with everything going on, I was like, hashtag make jazz fun again. And then of course I got the people saying, what do you mean it's not fun now? And it's not, I'm not saying it's not fun now or whatever. It's just like, you know what, let's really think about what we're doing and what we're playing and what we're performing and what we're really bringing. We should be bringing joy. And I see these recordings of the Ellington Band, the Basie Band, Louis Armstrong, and all these other people, and they look like they're having such a great time, and they're such great entertainers. And I think nowadays, I think people think it's corny to have fun while you play music, almost like they almost look down on you getting into it. Whether you're soloing and getting into it or you're reacting, So I was just like, man, just make jazz fun again, man. Let's just like have it. It's a super positive thing for me, and I think a lot of people get it, and a lot of people kind of understand where I'm coming from that. But that's really what it is, It's let's have a good time with this stuff, and it's not to force people to say like you can't be ultra serious about the music. It's not about that. It's just about, if we're playing and someone's playing some stuff and you enjoy it, it's okay to show people that you enjoy it, and I think that's a good thing. I think the audience responds to that as well.
Definitely, man. And it brings back memories. I had this band director of a regional jazz band when I was in high school, maybe 11th grade. And he would always say before a concert, he would say, if you're having fun, tell your face. And I thought that was always just really funny.
I like
and
that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty well put. And because basically, as you're kind of alluding to, the audience is there to enjoy themselves. The audience, unless they're musicians, going to like smalls or whatever that are just like sitting there like this, like like trying to study like whoever's
Sure.
playing in 13/4. but the vast majority of people, like the general audience, they want to enjoy themselves. And so
Yeah.
I think that allowing that to happen, or creating an environment where they can enjoy themselves and so can the musicians, is super critical. So I
Yeah.
commend you.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's those two things can both happen. You can still be playing serious, complicated, ridiculous music and also enjoy it. It doesn't have to be this like hyper focused thing where if you move around a little bit, that means you're now just a gimmick. People see that. I mean, yeah, sure, you have people that aren't playing serious music and are just all shtick up there, but it doesn't. They're not mutually exclusive. You can do both.
Definitely. And so let's rewind a little bit. Let's go
Sure.
back to before you picked up the saxophone. What was your family like? What environment led to you becoming interested in music, and specifically the saxophone?
Sure. So I'm not really from a musical family. My mom sang in a church choir. My dad didn't do anything musically, so it wasn't from that. But when I was little, I guess my parents always were like, I was like running around the house dancing and singing and stuff. Not well. I can't dance or sing a lick, but so they got me enrolled in piano lessons when I was like 4 or 5, like kindergarten age. And I started taking classical piano lessons, and that was my first instrument. And then band in 4th grade, we got to choose an instrument. And I remember a neighbor down the street had a trumpet, so that we asked if we could try it ahead of time, because I guess you can pick the instrument, or I don't know exactly how it worked. Tried the trumpet, couldn't make a sound on it because you need an embouchure to do it. So I was like, I don't like this. I was like, I guess I picked saxophone for whatever reason. I don't even remember why I picked it, but I picked saxophone in 4th grade, and I continued to play piano, and it just kind of grew from there, through elementary school, middle school, and I didn't really take private lessons until I was either 8th or 9th grade, on saxophone. And then in high school where the jazz stuff really started, and I had a great band director in high school, Bob Gravener, local here in central New Jersey. And he was playing in the Philly Pops. I think he's still with the Philly Pops on trumpet. And he would really show us a lot of jazz stuff and get us going with that. And that's really like 9th, 10th, 11th grade is where I really started the jazz stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. At what point did you kind of go from viewing music and saxophone as just something that was fun thing to do, enjoyable, to wanting to actually pursue that as a career, or start to pursue it in college and then subsequently have a career?
Sure. It was in high school. I really remember it. I did like the region bands and the all-state stuff, but it was just like, that was just kind of what I did because I was like, good at music and really not good at much else. But it was they had this thing called Governor's School of the Arts. I don't know if you know what that is. They don't do it anymore, I don't think. But they had it for they had Governor's School of like math and science, and they had one for the arts. And you audition, and if you get in, you actually stay at the College of New Jersey for a month in the summer, and you basically live like a college student. You live in the dorms. You wake up and you have like ensembles and history classes and lessons and all this stuff. And I got into that. Funny thing enough, on classical saxophone, I didn't make it on jazz. And I was in there on classical. I'm not good at classical at all. But I happened to get in or whatever, and being in that environment with living with people who were like, they were all as serious as I was about music, and just being, it's the same thing when you're in college and you're around those people. But it was my first time. It's in between your junior and senior year. So I was 16, 17 years old, being around all these people every day and going to history classes and seeing concerts, and we put on a concert every week, and we did this and all these collaborations. I was like, man, this is cool. Like, it's not just playing in my school band. There's a lot more to this. And I saw classical sax quartets and vocal groups and jazz quartets, big band, and this and that and that. And I was like, this is awesome. And I remember I went from practicing maybe 40 minutes a day to practicing when I was in the camp thing, I was practicing 4 to 5 hours a day, and I wanted it really bad, That was it for me, junior year, senior year.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was pretty much the same time for me, and maybe slightly earlier, but I definitely kind of, once I got to that age, kind of just knew where I was headed, and I'm sure that was kind of the same thing for you. It kind of felt like a just kind of a trek.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I had nothing else was really a main focus for me. And when that happened, I was like, I realized that could be a thing. And then that's what I really dedicated all my time to.
Yep. So you go to college. You went to William Paterson. Is that correct?
I did. William Paterson University.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about William Paterson because obviously the school has an amazing reputation, not just for the quality of the program, but also for the quality of the instructors and the professors, obviously. So if you could just say a few words about what your time was like there and who you were studying with and what left the biggest impression on you.
Oh, that's great. So William Paterson was really cool. I started in 2005. Yeah, the fall of 2005. I was there for when Mulgrew Miller started. Rest in peace. I love Mulgrew, man. He was one of the biggest influences on me. But so I started there, and I actually started I didn't get into the jazz program right away. And I remember I still wanted to get in. So I was like talking to Dave Dempsey, Dr. Dempsey, who's the director. And I started taking lessons with Gary Smulyan because he was still there at this point. It was his last year there, and Don Braden. But I studied with Gary Smulyan. And I remember being in lessons, and Gary would just beat me up with tunes. And, he'd sit there and play these like hip, rootless voicings with no bass line, no nothing. And if I got lost in the middle of the tune, he would just stare at me and smile and just keep playing for 5 minutes until I found it. I was like, oh, and I remember towards the end of the first semester, he was like, man, you're not in the jazz program? I was like, no, I want to maybe audition for next year. And he goes, hold on. And I was like, what? He literally left, goes and gets Dr. Dempsey, brings him back to the practice room. He's like, all right, you know giant steps, right? And I was like, it was like one of those tunes in like high school I kind of learned. I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I was like, and I'm playing. And Gary's like, man, he needs to be in the jazz program. Talk about that. And then, the next week I'm in the office talking. And then the next semester I'm in jazz performance. Now, I stayed in jazz performance for 2.5 years and actually switched to jazz performance / music ed. So it was all the jazz performing classes and lessons and stuff, and then with all the ed classes as well, which we can get into if you want later. But I started studying with Vincent Herring my second year. And really, Vincent was my only other teacher at William Paterson, like direct music, like direct saxophone instructor, if you're talking like, lessons. And Vincent really, really showed me a lot because he's one of these guys who's really good for just hardening you up and getting you ready. All these kids come to him, they're 18, 19 years old, and they're like, oh man, I got the Omni book down. I got all these cool licks. And you play some stuff and he just stares at you. And you get done and he's like, I remember he asked me, he goes, so have you ever listened to Charlie Parker? And I was like, oh. I was like, what do you mean? Of course, and we were talking about getting back to the basics and voice leading and harmony and just playing it correctly and not trying to throw all this other stuff at it. And he really kind of shaped that. But being in ensembles there with Mulgrew and Dr. Dempsey and, James Weidman, and taking arranging classes and theory stuff from Rich DeRosa, who's now I think in North Texas, and Jim McNeely. I did arranging with Jim McNeely, and it was like, it's some heavy stuff. And then you have John Mosca. It was a lot, and then Rich Perry was there. A lot of the guys from the Vanguard band were there. Jim and Rich and John, Gary was there. So it was really, really cool. And one of the coolest things, honestly, for me, was that Clark Terry was there once a week giving. He was doing like a class with a bunch of the grad students, and it always turned into, after the rehearsal, like 30 of us would go and sit in there, and it'd be like a master class with Clark Terry once a week, which is like the craziest thing, and that's when he was filming Keep on Keeping On with Al Hicks and Justin Coughlin. And it was just the coolest thing. So yeah, there was a lot there, not just saxophone related, but just music in general, man, from Clark and all those guys that really opened my eyes to really what's out there.
Yeah, man, and I have to also ask because I was looking at some of this stuff the other day. Did you get a chance at all to visit the archives of any of the folks they have over there? I think they have Thad Jones, Michael Brecker, although maybe at that time they obviously didn't have it yet.
The Brecker one wasn't there yet, yeah.
Right? And obviously the Mulgrew one probably wasn't there, but there were probably a couple at least.
Yeah, so they were doing the Clark living archive, while he was still around, and they were doing that, so that was cool. I honestly didn't get a chance too much to get over there because that was the time when they were kind of like they were moving it and everything was going on. And but it was cool because I got to see a lot of that stuff, the handwritten scores from Thad, because he did start the program at William Paterson, so handwritten, or the jazz part, handwritten scores from him, and seeing Clark's mouthpieces and his horns and stuff that he brought in, and it was really cool of Dr. Dempsey to do that. And man, I really got to get up there for the Brecker archive. I've seen some stuff on it, and I've talked to Dr. Dempsey about it. And, as a saxophone player, that's like, you see all his mouthpieces and his practice pads. That's really what I want to see, because he was, the consummate practicer. and to see kind of what he was working on and what he was thinking of while he was working on it really gets you inside of his head a little bit, and can maybe we can figure out a little bit of what he was thinking when he did all that crazy stuff. So I got to see it a little bit, but not a ton.
Gotcha. And so I just want to rewind a little bit, and
Sure,
if you could just say a few words about why you decided to switch from strictly the jazz performance to doing the dual bachelor's, I guess, in jazz and education. What was the impetus?
Sure. So all through high school, I had my private instructor, Frank Miller. He would always tell me, he's like, man, you should really look into getting an ed degree. And I was like, no, man, I'm going to play. I'm going to just play, and that's all I'm going to do. And he was like, just trying to be the guy of wisdom, just trying to tell me, he's like, listen, man, he was telling me, what's out there. And I didn't really get it when I was that young. And, this is, before Facebook and before YouTube, and before we can really be connected in with all these people on a personal level. So I was just like, man, no, look at this. These guys, they go out there, they're on the road. They're like, I'll make it work. I'll do this. And so I get to college, I do the thing. And then as I'm going through it, I start to really see what it's like. And I'm talking to all these people that are, have graduated from William Paterson or other schools that are making a living playing, and most of them, even though they were ridiculous players, like amazing, can do it all, great personalities, like they seemingly, you would be like, they'd be making tons of money doing this. They were, scraping by, living with other people, doing the thing. And I saw that and I was like, that's not what I wanted. It really wasn't. I didn't necessarily want that starving artist, do anything, eat ramen every single day to get my voice out there, because I was like, I thought about it, and there's no hate on anybody who does that. A lot of my friends do that, and I applaud them, man, because they work so hard, and I give them nothing but respect for that, because it is not easy, like everybody says, and I'm not saying anything new here, but I knew what I kind of wanted for like a quality of life and hobby perspective and time. And I also kind of had this realization, I guess it's a realization, that whether I had an education degree, whether I was a teacher, whether I was just a player, I wasn't going to let that affect how I actually played saxophone, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like I can still be as good of a player as I would be if I was playing full time, or if I'm teaching and playing, or maybe not the same as in like exactly the same, but I come from different perspectives now of thinking of music as a teacher and a performer as compared to if I was just a performer. So I thought to myself, I said, listen, and people told me, they said, having an ed degree or even being a public school teacher or whatever kind of teacher, no, it is not going to diminish. It shouldn't diminish how people think of you as a performer. And then I thought to myself, well, then I can also free myself up to then maybe do more of the gigs that I want to do, and not every single gig that I have to do to survive, and because I know a lot of people that really, they hate 90% of the gigs they play, which, hey, if they still love 10% of the gigs they play, and they say they're blessed to be playing music, and I believe them. But for me, just personally, I kind of wanted a different lifestyle for me. I didn't want that nonstop starving artist. Now, I was also thinking down the road, I said, the gigs aren't paying anymore, but rent is going up. Property taxes are going up. The price of gigs is either staying the same, going down, and then the pool of gigs is smaller and the pool of musicians is bigger. And it's a very cynical thing to look at, or to say, I guess, but it's the reality. So, some people don't want to hear the truth sometimes, and it's not to say you can't make it or anything. And who knows if I could have or not, but I knew what I kind of the path that I wanted to veer off in.
Right. And for me, it just kind of comes down to self-awareness, like you're talking about, kind of having the realization, like looking at, what kind of life do I want? And just because someone is willing to live with 13 roommates and eat ramen doesn't mean that if that makes them happy, then more power to them.
100%. And that's why, whenever I talk to students about it, I talk to high school kids going into college and they're thinking about their majors, I say, listen, I'm not going to tell you to do one way or the other. I'm just going to tell you what I've seen and what is possible out there. I said, if you want to dedicate your life to it and make a living playing music, I know people that only play music for a living. They don't teach a lick, and they're making it. So yes, you can do it. I also know people that do that. So I try to give both sides of it. And then I just say, it's really kind of what you want to do. It's really self-awareness, and really you have to be super realistic. If you know I'm going to do this because I know this is what's out there. And, I just, a lot of people say they're a musician because they have to be, not because they want to be. They say like, I have to. They're like, this is all I feel inside of me. And if you're the kind of person that feels that way, then you know what? More power to you. And you're gonna try to find a way to make it work, because if that's all you want and that's all you know, you're gonna grind it out. You know.
Definitely. And so
Yeah.
you get through your bachelor's, and then what is the next step for you? Do you go into the teaching field right away, or how does those first few years out of college look for you?
Sure. So I actually did. I while I was in college, I was talking to some people, and Vincent Herring had been teaching some other places, and was asking me about grad school and stuff. And I was like kind of here, I was kind of there. I wasn't 100% sure exactly what I was going to do. And then right before I graduated, a job came open down here in Central Jersey of being a jazz director at a private high school, where you just teach a couple big bands. You teach the saxophone and clarinet lessons. It's like an adjunct position. It's basically a college for high school kids. That's what I had no experience with private school. And I was looking at it, and I looked at this and I looked at that, and I was like, man, maybe I'll try this out. Because as I did the ed degree, I was like, maybe I'll like teaching, maybe I'll actually like this. And I talked to these people, and then with this job, I was like, oh, okay, so it's not full time. I'm not there doing marching band. I'm not doing all this other stuff. So I still have time to, go into the city and play gigs and go here and go. I live basically halfway between. Well, now I live halfway between Philly and New York, and this job was like 35 minutes from Philly, about an hour from New York. So I was like, I can still get to these places relatively easy, not a full time thing. So I actually worked down there for 1 year, and I really liked it. Bless you. And I really, really liked it. And and then that's what really clicked for me. And I was like, you know what? I actually really dig this teaching thing. And it was really cool because I got to come at it from a point of view of someone who wanted to perform and who was performing, just, not 7 days a week, but from someone who was performing and playing gigs and doing all this different stuff, but also teaching. And I try to always come at it from that perspective, because I think a lot of music teachers go to school to be music teachers. They never perform really outside of their school performances and stuff. And then when they teach, they have no actual real on the scene experience. I'm not saying I do. Okay. I'm not saying I have any of that at all. But, I've done a little bit of stuff here and there where I can kind of say it's, here's kind of what's out there a little bit. So I really dug it after that.
What are some of the most gratifying things, or some of the most underrated aspects of teaching, especially to younger folks, whether it be high school or even younger?
Man, some of the underrated, gratifying. I mean, there's the stock answer of like seeing a kid get it, but the cool thing for me, I mean, that is up there, that's there. But one of the things for me is really when a kid comes back to me, and it could be any age, it could be high school, middle school, whatever. When a kid comes back to me and says, Mr. Pollack, I was searching up, what was it? I was a trumpet player. And he's like, I was searching up, I found Arturo Sandoval. Have you ever heard of Arturo Sandoval? I said, yeah, blah, blah. He's like, I listened to this recording, and I bought this CD, and I did this, and I bought this like transcription thing or whatever, and I want to get into it. And I was like thinking, I was like, man, exposing these kids to music and showing them that there's music beyond the classroom, and teaching them that it starts here. This is like the very beginning, but it grows from there. And then having them on their own kind of go out there and explore on their own and be excited about it. And then be excited because of what they saw and they heard. They're now excited about their instrument. They're excited to learn and say, hey, can you teach? I have a saxophone player right now, actually in middle school. And he's always going online. Hey, I got this thing. Can you show me this thing? Oh, how do you do this effect? I saw David Sanborn do this thing. Can you show me? And I'm like, it's so cool to me to have them to see that spark of not just them playing their music, because that's one aspect of it. Like, yes, it's great when a kid finally clicks and they can play a B flat major scale. That's super cool, and that's awesome. That's a really good thing. But then for them to turn that into wanting to learn more and understanding more about their instrument, about music in general. Hey, Mr. Pollack, can you tell me some summer camps for music? I want to play music over the summer. I have tons of kids that come say that. And I'm just like, it like makes me feel really good, because I know I actually had an effect. Because, a kid might be stuck in band. Their parents might make them do it. And yeah, if they're in band over and over again, they're going to get some of the music, they're going to get a scale, but they might not actually care about it. You know what I mean? And I see that too. I see that side. But when a kid actually says, hey, instead of going to a rec summer camp where I'm going to do arts and crafts and swim, I want to go to a jazz summer camp. Are there any in the area? And I'm just like I'm looking for everything I can find and giving the kids that, because and they might not even play in college at all, or they might not play, but at least right now they have that love of it. And that love for music is going to stay with them the rest of their lives. And they're going to tell their friends, and they're going to have fun jamming with their friends on the weekend. It's just like, that's a really cool thing.
Absolutely. And so just on a more specific musical note, when you're teaching these high school students, presumably, what are some things that you notice that come up frequently in terms of weaknesses in regards to playing jazz that you kind of wish that had been addressed before they kind of made their way to you? And maybe this will, I know there's a lot of younger people that watch this channel that whether they be in high school, but maybe some of these things might even apply to, the first few years of college in some cases.
Sure. So one of the biggest things for me is just time in general. So time is a big one, and time in playing melodies even, and I think a lot of it has become from kids who have programs where they read music a lot, which is good, but they're not being exposed to like anything outside of that band music maybe, or because remember, if you're not showing the kids what real professionals sound like, the only reference point they have for musicians is their other classmates who might be in middle or high school. So for jazz playing, for example, I have kids all the time that come to me that might even learn some licks, and they learn some stuff, and they're like, my teacher showed me a 2-5-1, and I'm like, okay, cool, play it. And it's like, it's always out of time, and I'm like, but they can write it out and they can show me on the paper time. So I say, like, let's play a melody with a recording. Let's play it with someone. That's why transcribing melodies to me is so crucial, because if you transcribe correctly, you're getting every nuance of playing, and you're internalizing the time, you're internalizing the feel, you're internalizing the articulation. All those things to me are way more important than notes. I don't care about notes. Like I do the demonstration all the time where I play a 1-note blues solo, literally 1 note. If you play it with good time, good feel, good intonation, that goes infinitely further than playing all the notes. And I guess when I say time, I mean like feel as well. So like swing feel, whatever kind of feel, subdivision feel, placing quarter notes. I have exercises for placing like marcato, staccato quarter notes, because that's hard to do, without rushing and without doing other things, just playing through the instrument. And I see that a lot, and I have to address that a lot, because that's a hard habit to break. My big motto is practice makes permanent, not practice makes perfect, because these kids practice, but when you practice it wrong, you're going to play it wrong. So if you practice correct, perfect practice makes perfect. So when I have them practicing, I'm always really saying in context. Everything has to be in context with the right feel. But that's probably the biggest thing for me is feel and time.
Yeah, man, crucial. I remember one of my professors, my first year, I think it was my first year of college, he asked the class, he's just like, what 2 things do all great musicians have in common? And if you think about it, maybe there's more than 2, but there's definitely at least 2. And those 2 are great sound and great time. They're universal. So you can't really get away with not having one of those. So crucial. And know the earlier that you can get the focus on that, I think the better. So so let's see here. When a student comes to you and they are, maybe starting to think about college or look at colleges, how do you advise them? What kind of questions do you ask to gauge whether or not they should go to college? Is that something that comes up in discussion for you a lot? How do you approach it?
One of the first things I say is, what do you not want to do in college? What do you not want to deal with? Because a lot of people say they want to do this, they want to do that, but do you not want to, take these general classes? I definitely, no matter what in college, I don't want to have to take like 4 years of hard math classes or whatever. Okay, we can start narrowing it down. So after I get through kind of like this general stuff, I say to them, especially if it's, obviously if they're talking to me, it's probably music related. I say, okay, why specifically do you want to go to school for music? Forget performance education. Why do you want to go to school for music? Do you just like music? Do you see yourself doing it in the future? do you want to be part of whatever scene? And then once we narrow that down, I say to them, okay, so here's what's out there. Here are the options, and different schools and different regions of the country are going to be better for certain things. Like I know people who are much more into the production side of things, and for them, like Berkeley was like a great spot for them for like, sound engineering, recording, producing, that side. Other things that if you're looking for specific, saxophone or whatever instrument, specific instrument performance, and they're like, I really want to develop it, I would say look around to see which teachers or players that you really enjoy, what schools are they at? And then I kind of advise them that it depends on which teacher. Sometimes they're not there a lot of the times, because that sometimes a school puts a name. We have this player that teaches there, and then they sub out 60% of the lessons, and you're still paying the same amount of money as if they were there. And then it also comes down to, okay, if you want to play, or even if you want to teach, the region matters too. If you're, if a lot of people just say, go to New York, go to New York. New York is a, as and a lot of people know, it's a very tough place definitely tough place to play or do anything really related to music. It's hard, it's cutthroat, and it's at high quality. So that might be the best spot for a person, but also a spot might be, they're like, man, I really want to be a studio session player in LA. I'd say, okay, well then look for schools in LA. Look at USC, where Bob Mintzer is, one of my students. Actually, he's a freshman there right now. And, things like that. And it depends what you want to do. I have a student that I am currently teaching who wants to open up a jazz club. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be a business owner. So I told him, I said, okay, so you're going to look more on the business school side of things, not necessarily the music side of things, but you have that experience. So, it's really kind of narrowing it down. But I tell them, I say, listen, music school is really what you make of it. And that it's like, you're going to be getting better at the instrument is you in the practice room and you listening. Yes, the teacher can help you, but there's always ways to get lessons from someone here or there that now, you can get it a million different ways. So it's not like, I love the way Bob Mintzer plays, I have to go to USC. You don't have to, and like I said, you're going to be listening to his records. You're going to be sitting in the practice room playing. You can also do that in your kitchen. You can do that in your basement. You don't necessarily need to go there for that. So I tell them all those other reasons, but then I come back and I say, you're going to get good. If you have the drive to get good at your instrument, if you have the drive to be whatever you want to be, you're probably going to do that no matter where you go, unless you set yourself up really poorly. But for the most part, if they're asking me, they're probably on the right path anyway.
Definitely. And kind of circling back to the whole New York thing, I just find it so fascinating because pretty much most, if not all, of the musicians that I talk to anyway, that are living in New York and doing a lot of playing in New York and making a living for themselves, the funny thing is they all will freely admit that they make most of their money outside of New York.
Yes.
And whether that's through touring or, online lessons or master classes or whatever the case is. And I just find that so interesting. And so for all of its flaws and everything awesome about it, New York is obviously and admittedly a very, very difficult place to make a living if you're not willing to travel outside of it frequently, at least semi-frequently.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people end up using New York for is almost to harden themselves up and to get work on themselves. So that way, when you bring yourself somewhere else, because if you can hang in New York playing, you're probably going to be able to hang anywhere else, So it's not necessarily that they're doing all the work there, but it's building you up and building up, home base for you, and then kind of branching out from there. That's what I think. I don't live in New York, so I can't speak to that, but from people I've talked to, it kind of seems like that.
So let's touch on a little bit of the fun stuff, which is I have to ask you some questions about will it play? Because these videos, if you guys have not seen them, they are hilarious, I must say, but they're also really fascinating in a way because I always want to click on it and see, will it play? I mean, how does it sound? How is it that terrible? Is it a viable instrument that could be utilized in an ensemble? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Right. And so
you see that good thumbnail and you're like, there's no way he taped those three instruments together. Click.
Exactly.
Got you. I got you hooked in.
Yeah. And so obviously a couple of years ago, actually it's a few years ago now, I can't remember the gentleman's name. Maybe you know him, the guy who invented Balto.
Oh, Brian Murray.
Brian Murray,
Absolutely.
yes.
Oh, he's the OG of that stuff, man. He's the best.
And so I wanted to ask you, was he kind of your inspiration for this series that you're doing, or I mean, from my personal recollection, he kind of seems like the first one to, do the weird combination thing where, if you guys haven't seen it, go to YouTube, search Balto, Balto exclamation point, and he takes a baritone sax mouthpiece and puts it onto an alto sax, and it's a real interesting sound.
Yeah, it's I think, like, people are commenting saying Yusef Lateef or some other people like way back were doing it, but it was kind of just some other thing. But like in the current like modern time, yeah, Brian Murray was the first one I've seen to do that, and he really took it to the extreme. Like he tried to play, like he's a great jazz player, but he didn't necessarily try to play jazz on it in the sense of like he wasn't playing like a blues just kind of tip, and he was like going at it and going for it and trying to go for the craziest sounds ever. And he actually has 2 albums out on Balto. I think they're on iTunes. I bought them, and they're awesome. You have to be prepared. You can't just like go into it thinking it's a saxophone thing, because it doesn't really sound like a saxophone. But yeah, he was probably the inspiration for that. And I remember when I forget what the first video was. I think it was like the Grammy band audition video a few years ago. I think I messaged him. I was like, hey man, I really want to try this Balto thing for video. Is it okay? Like, I didn't want to like step on his turf, And he was like, do it. And he's like all into it, And I went with that. But the Willa Play thing just kind of popped up. I forget exactly why. The first one was the trumpet mouthpiece which is, I think I was at school, like when I was teaching or something, and I like saw a trumpet mouthpiece, and I was like, sat there and I was like, man, how funny would that be if I just took I was like, the bore of the neck of the alto, it's about the same for the lead pipe of the trumpet. I popped it on. I remember I played, I was like, whoa, this kind of works. So like, and I always try to make my videos, like I try to just make it like click for the craziness, but also stay for something good. So like not only just play it, but like, have a 3 sax, trumpet, alto, whatever arrangement with backing track, and like trading with each other and stuff. So it's like honestly, that video I had to do like multiple takes just in the beginning because I was laughing so hard at myself. Like I was listening to what I was playing, and I was like, this is like so. And as I'm recording, I'm like thinking of people watching this, like, what are you doing? And just like hearing my wife in the other room go, what is going on? And I'm like, don't worry about it, it's cool. But yeah, so I just like trying different stuff, and like you said, like having fun with this stuff, man. I like to just try it, and I don't know. It's just fun for me. It really is. That's why I do it. It's fun for me, and it seems like other people like it as well.
Absolutely. I love it. I mean, for me, it almost brings back memories of, high school band days and doing God knows what to the school instruments and trying to do different stuff. And that was a very carefree time. It was a very enjoyable time with your band buddies, as I'm sure many people listening to this can relate. You just skip gym class, skip lunch, you're just in the band room. So I'm sure a lot of people watching this are gonna relate to that. So it's fun for me, and so I commend you for that.
Yeah, and it's like these things don't have to be like, oh, because there's always the people that are like, I can't believe this. My students have come up to me saying, have you seen this video? Oh, I am so shocked that you would do this. I hope you're not a teacher, because I can't believe if you're I'm just like, man, like that's, and then people wonder why I have hats that say make jazz funny. Like not even jazz, just music now in general. Man, it's just like, just have I'm not, and the thing is, I always explain to everybody, and even my students who will see it, I say, there's a time and a place for these things. I said, if we're in jazz band and I count off the first tune and you got a trumpet mouthpiece in your alto, we got a serious issue. But then they know that, like, but they have fun, like free period. Like you said, come down, hang out, throw it in there, try it out. That's how instruments are invented. That's how new things are going on, And people always get on jazz musicians. Well, not always, but I've seen people rag on jazz musicians like, oh, you're playing antique music from 70 years ago. Play something new. And then people try new things, and they're like, man, you're hating on the tradition. And I'm like, oh, my God, there's no winning. So that's why just do whatever you want. If it makes you happy, do it. Kids, do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
And adults, too. You can have fun when you're an adult. I'm not 20 years old. I'm not 15 years old. I'm still having fun with it.
Absolutely. And shout out to Brian Murray. I hope he'll come on the podcast soon. If someone wants to send this to him and convince him to come on, then
yes,
then that'd be pretty sick. Yeah, man. I just remember too, every time there would be a substitute teacher, it would just be mayhem. Me and all my friends would just play
Uh-oh.
we would just play different instruments just because it was fun. So it'd be like, oh, be a percussionist for a day,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that was always a good time. But
And
yeah, we definitely got into trouble, but
sure. I mean,
that's
hey, it happens.
of course. And so
Time and a place. Time and a place.
of course. And so that's a little bit besides the point. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to recently, just in terms of your own music. If you have anything in particular going on, anything that you're excited about, or just what's been getting you fired up as of late.
Sure, sure. So I've taken a break from my own band. I'd been playing with my own like quartet, quintet type thing for a while and doing all my music. But I had some. I just kind of thought I should take a break from that for a while and kind of regroup. But I do have some things in the works. I have nothing concrete yet. But there's been a lot of people asking me, man, we want just an album of your music. Where's your music? Your music. So there is going to be something coming in 2020 about that. I can't really give too many other details, mainly because I don't have them yet. Just full disclosure. But there are some things that are going to be coming from my own music in 2020, and I'll definitely, obviously, be putting that out there on the YouTube channel and just promoting it through that. But some other things, like this past summer, I had the opportunity to go back to Australia to play, and I was there a couple years ago playing with an R&B band. But I was back there again, doing some gigs, doing some master classes, and working on some things there, and working through some things. So next summer, I might be going back again to Australia to do some more work there, and maybe even down in Sydney as well. So I got that, that's like a kind of the long-term kind of stuff. But as far as stuff right around here, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing just freelancing stuff here and there. And because of the teaching thing, I can kind of pick and choose which ones I want to do that fit into my schedule, that really kind of would make me feel good to do, and not just do because I have to, which is cool. I'm going to be getting ready. I've been already started recording for my Christmas tune of the day, which I do every year on my YouTube channel. I record 25 tunes, 25 separate videos in 25 days. So I'm going to be doing a lot of collaborations this year with people in Australia, Germany, France, and then across the United States as well. So that's going to be a big deal this year, coming out December 1st, obviously on my channel. But yeah, just I've been doing some different side recording things for some people, and yeah, just stuff here, stuff there, and nothing too crazy, but I have a lot planned for the near future anyway.
Right on, man. So if people want to find you, definitely go check out the YouTube channel, which is just Dave Pollack.
Yep.
And you can also follow Dave on Instagram, just at also Dave Pollack, right?
Dave Pollack Music.
Dave Pollack Music. And then your website is also davepollackmusic.com. Is that right?
I think it's just davepollack.com, actually.
Okay, got it.
I think. I think it is. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, they'll find you. They'll find you.
Yeah, if you just Google my name, a lot of stuff comes up. A lot of funny stuff comes up. I'm not the NFL player, by the way. I don't know if any of you. I know sometimes I might get confused with a 250-pound, like I think he was a linebacker, David Pollack, pronounced the same, spelled the same. That's not me, unfortunately. That would have been cool.
Understood.
He did broke his neck, though, so that's not too good. But,
Understood. And so besides clearing up that ambiguousness there, is there anything, any final thoughts you'd like to put out into the world?
Man, I just want to say once again, I want to shout out Mr. Bootlegs here, Bernie Bootlegs, for the great work you're doing, man. I really, really appreciate it, because there are a lot of people who wouldn't get a chance to see these recordings and of all the players that you put out there, and then you curate them in the one spot, and the ones that you do yourself. It's just really great. And this podcast thing, man, it's awesome. I think it's a really cool thing, especially the people that you're getting that are more in the up and coming side, if you will, not necessarily established for 40-year players, which is really cool. And it's great to see all the different perspectives. So there's that. And then also just in general for everybody, as you could tell from this interview, I'm big on kind of doing what really makes you happy, what makes you tick, and what I'm always big on trying to give back to other people and trying to make other people smile, make people happy. And music, honestly, is one of those things. We have this gift as musicians. Like, music usually makes people happy. There's not many people who don't like music. So if we can have fun playing music, if we can have fun teaching music, if we can have fun putting together wacky instruments and making people smile on the internet, man, I say it's a great thing. So we should keep doing what we're doing. We're lucky to do what we're doing. And yeah, I'm grateful for every day I get to play, every day I get to teach. every day I get to film a video. And yeah, if you're a person out there that wants to start a YouTube channel, you play music or something, just do it. It's free. It's fun. Go for it. There you go.
Well said. Well, hey man, this was awesome. I really appreciate you coming on. I think people are gonna really enjoy this one. It was really enjoyable for me, and I'm really happy to talk to you today.
Oh, thanks so much. And once again, I really appreciate it, and it was a pleasure being on.
Thank you, man. Thank you guys so much for checking out the podcast, and don't forget to subscribe wherever you happen to be listening to this. And you can always go to berniesbootlegs.com for more episodes. Thanks again, and see you guys next time.